This is the voice of the New York Football Giants, Bob Papa, and you are listening to the best throughout Europe, the Big Blue UK and Ireland podcast.
Welcome back, Giants fans, to the latest edition of the Big Blue UK and Ireland podcast, proudly in association with Andy's Man Club. Lads, remember, it is okay to talk. Back to the routine, back to the normal now after last week. Obviously, this episode, as you can see, we are 100% British and, as always, 100% Giants. Back to solely talking Giants football after allowing the dirty rivals to muddy up the place in our own house last week. And I'm pleased to say that we've got Shane back with myself and Aaron to go through this one, where we're going to have a look at some preseason hopes and then do some 53-man roster projections to compare. We'll be doing ours live, but we do also have Dan's and Kev's ready to rock. So all five of us go head to head there and see if we agree on everything, which, knowing us, is no. Shane will take us on tangents and take us down rabbit holes of bringing in someone. But how are we doing, lads? Are we good?
Yeah, doing well. I do have to laugh though. Within an hour or two of last week's stream finishing and having two of our NFFC opponents laugh at my maths, then the two of the players that they identified as the most important player on the Cowboys in Micah Parsons and the most important player on the Commanders as Terry McLaurin both requested trades from their team, just proving my maths was right. And they were laughing at me, but who's laughing now?
The full Scott Steiner Mayo experience as we had last week. Shane, how are we doing?
Yeah, not bad. It feels weird. It feels weird being on these days, to be honest. I feel like I'm more than I'm actually on. To the joys of doing 12-hour days, 12-hour night shifts. But you guys have been doing pretty well with the content that's been coming, and it's kind of the final road now towards kind of pre-season games and then the actual season beginning. I'm going to start off straight off the bat, going on tangent train. Did anybody see the box that John Gruden received from the Giants? I was like, oh man, I want one of them boxes because the shit that was in there was good. I'm telling you, the helmet, even the gloves, the t-shirts, they were just banging, man. I was like, I'll send me one of them, Dabes.
I haven't looked at it yet. What's in there? I saw there was the helmet with the old school Giants logo, the Giants spelling.
So there was that in there. There was just like Giants t-shirts. There was a signed Jaxson Dart jersey sent to him as well. Some gloves. I can't think what else.
Tracky bottoms and a starter jacket.
Yeah, it was like, talk about a perfect Christmas gift for the ultimate Giants fan. Just like that box. I wouldn't want anything else for Christmas.
And there was the 100 season book as well, the limited edition book as well.
Yeah.
So it was like the perfect Christmas gift.
Some might say the only thing that was missing out of that box was a Big Blue UK and Ireland t-shirt. That's what I've seen on Twitter. I don't know how true that is, but that's what people are kind of hinting at.
Maybe we should get Gruden's address, his PO box, and send him one. Brilliant. Right, straight on the tangent, like bang, straight away. There we go. That's how we like it. Obviously, if you are watching this on YouTube, X or Facebook, please do get involved in the comments. The comments were strong last week. I think our esteemed guests enjoyed a few of the bits of banter that were going back and forth. So obviously carry that on. Obviously, like this video, subscribe if you aren't already, hit the notification bell. Make sure all you audio listeners rate us on podcast platform of choice, 5 stars. Thank you very much. And before we get into the sort of main topics, I think it's probably best that we have a look at the news, seeing as we didn't do it last week, and we've been kind of a little light on it. And I am going to kind of continue that in the terms of I don't want to get too far into it. You know, we've had 10, I think it's 10 workouts now, public workouts of the training camp. A few new signings, a couple of players leaving, chunk of injuries, what's new. But we're not going to kind of go through any plays or talk about any sort of wow moments because, you know, it's practice. This weekend is going to be the big one where we go up against the Bills and we're actually going to see live ball with some of these players down the depth chart. I don't know how much the starters are going to play. Obviously, we need to get the chemistry going there. But we'll wait and see. If we start with the injuries, because they always shape a 90-man roster in the short term, especially with the preseason games coming up. As always, Brian Dable has been his usual coy self when it comes to telling the media details about injuries and timescales. But Dan Duggan put a tweet out, I think it was yesterday or the day before, from the open training session. And on the injured list are Cam Scatterby with a hamstring injury, Rashawn Baker with a knee injury, Jordan Riley with a question mark, Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles, he has a question mark. Ty Summers has a question mark as well. Obviously, we're going to get into two of those players in a second.
I take it that don't mean that the Riddler's in disguise.
No, it's. I don't think we've now just a full team's worth of Batman villains. I just think we're just not being told. Also with question marks are Darius Slayton, Bo Collins, Chauncey Goldston, Cordell Flott. They all have unknown injuries. Tight end Thomas Fedoni is in concussion protocol, and Corey Black, our cornerback, he has a groin injury. After that session, it was revealed that Rashawn Baker had been waived/injured. So if he clears waivers, I think he reappears on the Giants roster with an injury designation. And then Ty Summers was placed on injured reserve. Due to this, the Giants signed running back Jonathan Ward and linebacker KJ Cloyd. Jonathan Ward has played 47 times in 5 seasons for the Cardinals, Titans, and the Steelers. Played 4 times last season, 59 special team snaps, 10 offensive snaps. He has 22 career carries for 91 yards. And KJ Cloyd is back with the Giants for now the second preseason in a row. He was released prior to the 53-man cutdown last year and spent time in the Broncos practice squad before being released in May, so he didn't stick there. One thing that we are going to talk about from practice, and like I said, we're not going to talk about press conferences or anything like that, but Brian Dable and the Giants have been quite good over the years welcoming in people into training camp. They did it last year with a lot of the vets. They've done it this year with a lot of vets. But one person who's been at the training sessions this year that we haven't seen too much of in previous years, and he's done multiple days this year, is Tom Coughlin. Now, Brian Dable has admitted that the two have been bonding more recently, saying he's someone I talk to often, lean on, get advice from. He's a good resource. He's done this for a long time. He comes from a great coaching tree. He's been very successful as a head coach with this organization, and he knows what it takes. Shane, Daves has always struck me as somebody who's quite a closed person externally. I'm sure he's very open internally, but as soon as you get someone from the outside coming in, he kind of puts the shutters up and it's gone. Does this show that maybe the slight reluctance to bring Coughlin in the past has kind of softened due to maybe the fact he needs to start listening to those outside voices to stay here long term?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things for me. Obviously, I think one of the reasons why he's quite close, I think that's more like a bit of a media show at times. I think probably within the National Football League, he's probably kind of well liked and has got a lot of good relationships. Obviously, he's been at the collegiate level, he's been at the professional level now, so he's going to have built a lot of relationships. So I think a lot of what we see is just kind of like what the media see when they're asking questions. And we spoke about it before we went on air. Just oh, he's injured. What's the problem? Oh, he's dealing with summer. Like, he's very close when it comes to the media. But I think also it'd be interesting how much of this potentially continues on from the meeting he had with John Mara in the off-season, where John made it clear that maybe certain things could potentially need to be changed, i.e. play calling, which, you know, we might get into later on today. We might get into it later on down the line when pre-season and that, but potentially that's something that he's listened to. So maybe John Mara said something to him about, look, maybe it's worth bringing in guys that have been there, done it all, won it all. Like, let's not forget, you know, he come from Buffalo where they hadn't won anything really. He's got history with the Patriots, and obviously Belichick's record speaks for itself. But, you know, maybe it was something that Mara suggested him. Look, if you want, we can bring in someone like Tom, who, you know, has been here, done it all, won it all. I think, was it one of the Super Bowl years that we won? It was the year before. I think we'd had a bit of a rough season and we had a rough start, and then we went on to win the Super Bowl. I want to say it might have been the 2011 season potentially, but obviously I wasn't a fan back then. So I do think some of it might be him listening to what John Mara said, taking it on board, and maybe kind of giving it a go. And you never know, maybe Joe Shane's get him a bit of a nudge as well and said, look, our jobs are on the line this year. Maybe you should take some of these offers up that have been extended to you.
I mean, I know, Aaron, that they obviously had Parcells there last year. Parcells being the man who, you know, the Coughlin kind of came through that kind of coaching tree. But I mean, it is invaluable to have somebody like Tom Coughlin, who's not just respected at the Giants, but across the league.
Yeah, I think. I mean, who's to know why you bring it in, who you bring it in, what's the relationship with ownership, and all of these kind of things at times. I think, you know, when you're on the hot seat and it's not gone well, you'd be foolish not to reach out to someone like Coughlin and say, you know, is there anything you've got for me, or can you come and have a word with the team and everything else? So, you know, the definition of madness is maybe doing the same thing after it doesn't work, right? So if this is a turning over a new leaf or whatever, then it's showing signs that actually, you know, maybe I don't know everything, or maybe I haven't extracted as much as I could have. We've got such a young team as well. Like, it's one of the youngest squads, and Tom Coughlin was known to be a bit of a hard ass. So maybe bringing that guy in and kind of letting him say, well, you know, I'd have you running laps and 2 days this, and, you know, just that other side that brings it in is. And sometimes if you're known as good cop, you can't play bad cop, but maybe you just want to bring another voice in to pass that message on and everything else. So, you know, we know Joe Shane's the master of kind of PR, and maybe some of that rubs off on Daboll as well.
It's not something that I had down to speak about here, but I kind of want to touch on it just because we've got Shane here and it kind of makes sense to speak to him about Abdul Carter. Are you scared of being overhyped by what you're seeing? Because everything I see, I just think to myself, Jesus Christ.
Nah. I've seen this for a couple of years now. Obviously, you saw it a lot more last year, because last year was the first time he moved to edge from the linebacker position. But he's everything as advertised. He's everything that I thought he would be. He's everything that I hoped he would be. What it makes me think is, thank God we didn't fuck this up. Thank God we didn't try and get too cute at number 3 overall and try and do something stupid and like the Brains did, trading back and all that kind of stuff. Like, I'm just glad that the Giants did what we said they needed to do in the weeks leading up to the draft. Don't overthink it. Don't get cute. Don't get smart. Don't get cocky. Stay at number 3. Take the player that falls. It's going to be Travis Hunter. It's going to be Abdul Carter. You're going to get one of the 2 best players in the draft. You've done that. You've got one of them. And now everything is advertised. And he's just going to absolutely destroy this league. He really, really is. Like, he's going to be Defensive Rookie of the Year.
I thought bold predictions was next week.
No, that ain't a bold prediction. That's a fact.
And for the second year in a row, have we got money on a rookie?
Second, I've done it 3 years in a row now. I had
tips.
Nah. I had Trey Hawkins. That was a bit of a bad bet because he was lighting up in camp. So I thought, oh, you know what, the value's there is 70-1. I think last year I had 10 on Leak, so this year I'll have a 10 on Abdul.
And you're not going to split that a 5 on Abdul Carter and a 5 on Jaxson Dart?
Oh, that's a nice double, actually. that double talks. You know what? Let's have a 10 on Abdul and then five each on the double.
Or maybe it should be the running back and not the quarterback. The defensive end and running back double.
Yeah, because we know Dart's not going to see any action until the later half of the season, so that's going to be hard for him to win that award. But what are you saying, that Mayo? Is Scat going to do it?
Hey, well, again, hamstring may be a problem at the moment, but we'll remember, if you remember Odell Beckham Jr.'s rookie year, he missed a couple of games at the start of the season, missed a bit of camp with a hamstring or calf, one of the two.
I feel like for the season going forward, like when Mayo's talking about Scat and I'm talking about Abdul Carter, we need like some romantic music playing softly in the background.
Yeah,
we've done it before. We can quite easily do it again. It was interesting. I was watching Giants Nation show earlier, and obviously Bobby's got Ryan Nowitzki on with him for this entire run that he's been doing at training camp, and they were talking about how Neighbours and Carter are the like clear standouts from the public periods and what you've seen. And they said that Neighbours has had the better camp than Carter, but Carter's shown the best of himself. Like when they're both at 100%, Carter clearly stands out, whereas Neighbours is just a consistent high performer. It's mental that we seem to have, in back-to-back years, picked up two absolute game changers on either side of the ball. And you just if you haven't seen any of some of Carter's one-on-one reps and the spin move, especially that he does on John Runyon, just seek it out. And hopefully we see some of it this weekend. I don't. It's really annoying because you don't know how much we're going to see. And obviously, Dable's never going to say anything.
I'm sure I read earlier on Twitter, I can't remember who it was now. I don't know if it was maybe the joining side. I think they said they don't expect the starters to play this weekend because of the scrimmage with the Jets next week. I think the starters might be held out.
So typically, it's the second preseason game where the starters get maybe the first quarter, maybe into the second. But given that we have those joint practices, you kind of feel like, well, why do the starters need to play that game? And so I'm thinking we might see a series of the starters, just a single series of the starters in this first game, because they're not going to play as much in the second game, and in the third game, they won't be playing at all.
So the joining side already on, they tweet, the Giants conducting joint practice with the Jets next week. I don't expect to see the starters against Buffalo Saturday. Obviously, a great chance for the depth players to make an impression. But then he does also say the Giants have come out the gate slow the last two seasons, so he might get the starters in to set the tone.
Yeah, because if you remember the Lions game last year, because we had the joint practices with them, the starters didn't play anything like as much in the Lions game than you would kind of have expected them, because they got all their work in the week. And I kind of think we might see the same. But who's to know? With Dable, I wouldn't trust it if he said it anyway, because he'll just go, well, we'll play it by ear. We'll see what happens. We're here to compete.
If you look at the sort of depth chart of the outside linebackers / defensive ends, you've got Burns, Thibodeau, Carter, Golston, who we've just said is on the sidelines at the moment with an undisclosed injury, Trace Ford, Timon Fox. Ford and Fox aren't playing every single snap of that Bills game. So the others are going to have to at least have a few plays, you would imagine, especially if Chauncey Golston's out.
Yeah, but I suppose it just depends what formations they go for, and that, like, you could. He's not his position, but like say Michael McFadden could play there and use him as a blitz, or you could just go with kind of some of the defensive tackles, maybe playing defensive end. It depends what they want to do. But I need to go on to Tangent Train 2.0. Mayo, if you've got to win £1 million, would you rather be blocking Dexter Lawrence in the middle or Abdul Carter on the edge to win £1 million?
Very good question. I think I would rather Dex, only because there is a chance of getting in the way and slowing him down enough to draw the rep. With Carter, I've seen some of the slow-mos of the that double move spin, and he's got. I don't think I'd get a hand on him. I honestly don't think I'd get a hand on him.
It's that step Carter has as well. Like the speed and the momentum he gets just off that initial step.
Yeah,
is ridiculous.
Yeah, so I don't think I would. I don't think I would win at either of them, and I think I'd get destroyed in both of them. I think the Carter rep, though, I would look worse because I wouldn't lay a finger on him.
I'm so glad you asked Aaron and not me, Shane. I think if I was to go up against Dexter Lawrence, I'd end up in another postcode.
Yeah, you just be like, I'm not going to win the million, so there's no point.
No.
Yeah.
I value my bone structure more than the million, I think. Right. That's enough of tangents. Let's take it back onto the preseason hopes and kind of look at some of the things we are going to look out for across this preseason. Obviously, we've got the Bills at home, and then the Jets, and then the Patriots, which are both away. I say that in inverted comments because obviously the Jets game is going to be at MetLife. Aaron, if you go first, what is it that you're kind of focusing on this preseason?
Yeah, so I'm kind of hoping to come into this and give all of our listeners a reason to watch every offensive snap in our preseason game. So I think it was clear last week from the conversations we were having, and also from what I've seen on the media side, the impression of our quarterback room. I think we've talked about it at length through the off season, and how we're impressed with the change of our quarterback room. Externally to the Giants, I'm not sure there's that same opinion. So I think the general impression I get that's out there is Wilson is washed, Winston is a joke, and they think it's crazy that Dart isn't going to start by at least week 3. Or he won't start. It's crazy he isn't starting now, and he'll be starting by at least week 3. That's the kind of external view of the Giants, and I don't get it. I don't see it. I think, and I kind of wanted to go back and look at some of the statistics between last season and this season, knowing that our offense is largely the same, certainly as the starting groups. But so why do I think there's such a big difference, and why do I think there's hope? So. We were an offense that was 31 out of 32 teams in points per drive, and we had a 40% chance of a 3-and-out, which was last in the league. So we were absolutely terrible. If there was almost a 50% chance that we wouldn't get a first down, and then if we did get a first down, we were slightly above the worst in kind of progressing down the field. And when you transfer that offense to be a middle of the pack team, and I think, there were some games that were pretty close last season. So that's what I'm looking forward to kind of seeing in some of the, you can't see it in the camp tape, but you can see it maybe in some of the preseason games, see what's going on and kind of seeing what's coming through. So we do have a harder schedule. So it's, and it's not officially confirmed. I think even in today's press conference, it was kind of questioned, and it wasn't a direct answer from Dable, but it seems that Mike Kafka is going to be the primary play caller again this season. And what I'm more interested in is whether we see more of his tendencies rather than Dable's. And that's kind of, we know Kafka, it has a bit more of a run mix in there. Whereas if you look at Dable back at Buffalo, he only ran just to keep the defense honest. So I think it's... whereas I think if you look at the Chiefs' kind of background and that route, the run is much more integral to the more balanced offense that they have, and seeing if that comes through. So, and just to be clear, I think if you go back to the quarterback room, we don't need that fringe MVP Russell Wilson to be coming in to really make that big difference. So in 2024, Russell Wilson, out of 43 qualifying quarterbacks, was ranked 8th in EPA per attempt, which is a measure of efficiency from quarterbacks, and 16 in yards per attempt, 8th in touchdowns per interception ratio, and had the 10th fastest time to throw. So, those are all good metrics to show tell you whether a quarterback's lost it or not. And he's in the top 10 in a lot of those categories. That compares to the New York Giants quarterbacks over the last 2 years, which were 28th and 29th in EPA and yards per attempt. So they're much. We've had much worse play than what the play Russell Wilson put out last year. Not Pro Bowl Russell Wilson, last year's Russell Wilson. And then if you talk about EPA play, again, this efficiency metric, they basically add every play up, and you get if you throw an incompletion, that's a minus. If you throw a completion, you'll get some kind of plus. Basically, anything that's a boom or a bust play, you'd get a score of 1. So it's like if you get a plus 20-yard downfield gain, or if you take a sack, or if you throw an interception, you get a -1. Well, Wilson ranked number 1 in boom to bust ratio. She had 19 boom plays to 1 bust, which is, again, highest in the league. And the Giants were ranked 30 out of 32 teams last year. So that explosive offense is what I'm looking forward to kind of see, that actual chunk yardage down the field. And we should see a bit of that in preseason, because it starts with the play calling and the ethos and everything else, not just the quarterback room. Again, a lot of this stuff is all about metrics on a clean pocket, and it generally ignores the obvious passing situations where you get more blitzes and all those kind of things, and longer yardage and all that kind of thing. But Russell Wilson does become a bit of a fuck it player on third down, and he is considerably worse against pressure. But so was Daniel Jones, so was Tommy DeVito. So the negative and something that, again, some of it's scheme, some of it's the players, is we ranked number 31 out of 32 on pressure rate, on early down pressure, or preventing that early down pressure will be a massive success for the offense. And again, that's where I think maybe Kafka can come in and show some difference. So if we're a more balanced offense run to pass, it keeps the defense and the DC guessing a bit more. So you don't necessarily get so much early down pressure just because they don't know what's coming. And I think that's hopefully where we see a bit of progress from, again, preseason, very vanilla playbooks, but you start to see some of the ethos coming through that they've been working on in camp and these kind of things. So if Russell Wilson, again, moving on from Russell Wilson, I should say, if he's successful, the only time we're going to see Jaxson Dart is in the preseason. So again, going back to that, why you need to watch these offensive snaps, it's going to be the first and probably only opportunity, certainly up until the bye week, assuming no injuries, that we'll see Jaxson Dart. So getting to see where he's come, where he's developing, is he the future, which is one of the stipulations of Dable and Shane keeping their jobs. You got to come and see these snaps in the preseason, analyze it, and see what's going on. If Jaxson Dart does come in, I do expect Dable to steal the play calling duties back, because he's on the hot seat and it is his last chance to save his job. And so I don't expect he'll be farming out those playbook or those play calling duties out if it is to save his job. And then finally, Jameis Winston, when he gets his opportunity in preseason, get your popcorn, because he is going to launch it. And this is probably more important, watching those plays of Jameis Winston, is who's receiving the ball. And he's going to give some of these undrafted free agents or these fringe roster players really big opportunities to shine in these games and try and get onto the roster, whether that's with the Giants or whether that's if we cut them and they get picked up, get onto actual rosters. Those Winston snaps are going to be a lot of fun to watch, and maybe the only chance to see him playing for the Giants is preseason.
You've pretty much nailed what James was saying in saying that, hoping to see another wide receiver step up and earn a starting spot, Bo Collins or somebody. I mean, like you said, with someone like Winston, there's always the chance there of somebody standing out. We've seen a few highlight catches from Collins and from Montrell Washington and even Gunnar Olszewski yesterday. Like, some of these players are making flashes in camp, but like I said, that's in practice. What we want to see is, how do you do that against a defense who you're not looking at day in, day out and working against day in, day out? That's going to be the interesting point. There are other points James was saying, a bit more variety in the play calling, and Kev who's obviously watching along from work there. Want us to move the ball better on offense, no matter who we have on the field. Kafka's play calling, that's going to be interesting. Shane, I know you've been torn between an offense and defensive thought process on this one, which is why we've slapped you in the middle, kind of preempting what mine's going to be talking about. Which way are you going?
Yeah, for me, I'm going to kind of not talk about anything that I spoke about with you guys. Something else that was playing on my mind. It kind of follows on a little bit from what Mayo was saying, Justin. It's kind of the thing I'm kind of hoping to see in pre-season is depth players step up, because for me, you've got Andrew Thomas, who's injured. At the minute, we're hoping he's going to be back, but he's had injury problems in the past. You got JMS, who's looking a little bit ropey in preseason, so you need in training camp. So you need these players to kind of step up. Then you go hit to the wide receiver position. Yeah, okay. You got Neighbours. Yeah, you've got Slayton, but you need these players to step up depth, because behind the obvious three starters, Hyatt hasn't really done much, and we've got a lot of special teams players at wide receiver position. And then even if you go onto the defensive side of the ball at defensive tackle again, it's the depth chart alongside Dex. Yeah, it's easy to turn around and say, when you've got Dexter Lawrence on your team, it's easy to say Dexter Lawrence is going to be starting. But like I mentioned to you guys before we went on air, defense is where the most most value has been put into the team. Free agency, we spent at cornerback one, we spent at safety, we brought in a few defensive tackles as well. So we need someone to step up in terms of giving Dex a break. Dexter Lawrence needs a break, and we hope Darius Alexander's going to be that player. But unfortunately, he's missed a bit of time at OTAs and training camp due to an injury. So he's obviously not up to speed as to where we kind of hoped he would have been. But again, it's still kind of getting that player that can step up and play alongside Dex, and then when Dex goes off the field, that you've got someone capable there that can help stop the run. Because for years, the biggest problem with the Giants has been, stopping the run. And let's not forget, we've mentioned this in the past. If you look back to Hard Knocks last year, the infamous Hard Knocks that the Giants were on, one of the things that Dave was absolutely raving about was Shane Bowen's run defense. Now, we didn't see that last year. It didn't really kind of show up on tape, and it didn't really show up on the stats at all. So now the kind of investment's been put into that defense position. You've got players in the secondary that are good in run support. Now you need the linebackers and the defensive tackles to step up, because I'm not being funny. If one of the strong key points of hiring Shane Bowen was the run defense he's going to bring to the team, we did question at times last year, have we not seen it because of the personnel that's available to Shane Bowen? But for me, there's no argument for that now, because you've kind of had free agency last year, draft last year, free agency this year, draft this year, and a lot of investments into that defensive position. So for me, the hope that I see is just players stepping up and kind of earning that shirt, earning that spot on the 53-man roster. I want to see a few more Elijah Chapmans who kind of get on the field and then make a play, and you think, yeah, okay, let's put him on the roster, not because, he's just made one play, but he's showing that he wants it and he's determined to earn that spot. And, Elijah Chapman at times last year, I'm not saying he's Dexter 2.0, but he earned his place on that roster spot. And when he was called upon at times in games, he did kind of step up to the plate more than you would expect an undrafted free agent to. He's not like he'd be saying he was a round one talent. So, just for me, see players kind of step up, knowing that if we get any injuries, God forbid any suspensions for whatever reason, just you know that you've got competent players that can step into the roles, and it's not all going to fall apart.
Yeah, and kind of on brand to that, James has kind of asked the question of what's happened to Shane's Defensive Player of the Year last year, Deontay Johnson. Barely heard his name this training camp. Is he still rehabbing? I was just doing a little bit of kind of research into that. Obviously, he's sitting at linebacker 2, depth spot 3 at the moment, behind I think Chris Board on there. So you'll also have Darius Musa.
I think he's LB5 technically, ain't he, at the minute?
Yeah, I was going to say
Bobby R. McFadden, Chris Board,
Musa.
and Musa.
Yeah. So he is there. He's playing on the second team. I've seen his name come up on a few highlights, not unfortunately in a good way. I think he got burnt by Smith Marset in one of the Jaxson Dart touchdown throws a few weeks ago or last week. So we haven't heard much from Deontay Johnson. He's not sort of maybe splashing as much as he did last year, but like you said, he's still probably rehabbing that injury. To a degree, he came back for one game. So, and I think we were always looking at him as a depth piece, as Shane's just been kind of going through. My focus is still going to be in that backfield with the cornerbacks and with the safeties. Right on time there, Kev, who earns that CB2 spot. Look at that. Almost like he knew which way I was going to be going there. I don't know about you boys, but towards the beginning of training camp, when we first saw reports coming out, it looked like there was a genuine competition, and Flop started at CB2 before Banks did, and it went back and forth a little bit, and it looked like they were going to have a proper battle between the two of them. They were both making plays. You saw some videos of Deontay Banks breaking up a few throws. Admittedly, he still doesn't seem to consistently get his head around, and flags are going to be incoming for that. But I think that seems to be just the way that Deontay Banks is now. But Flott then goes and tweaks something in his leg, and all of a sudden, Deontay Banks kind of has a kind of clear path to that CB2 role without really any pressure on him, which I think is a bit of a shame. It would have been really interesting to see those two go at it across the entirety of training camp and of preseason, and see how they dealt with different receivers in games. I mean, you're not going to be going up against top tier receivers in those games. We potentially still might have Terry McLaurin in division, but we went through it last week. Pickens, Lamb, AJ Brown, Devonta Smith. Like, there's some big names in our division, and that's without looking at the other teams that we play this year. And it would have been nice just to see sort of how the battle's going, and we've almost been sort of robbed of that. And it looks like Banks is going to be the person who ends up lining up at CB2 there. Another person, though, to kind of keep our eye on, and we haven't heard much about him, is Trey Hawkins. He came in for that Saints game last season and really balled out until he fractures his back during that same game. And you watched him during that, and you were like, oh, hang on a minute, is this maybe somebody who's going to upset Banks during the season? And then all of a sudden it kind of fell to pieces. But it would be good to see how he does. And again, it's a shame that we've got Corey Black at the moment who's on the sideline, because it would be nice to see what we've got there. But that cornerback 2 spot, it still worries me to a degree. And then obviously the depth behind that. We'll get into the 53 shortly, but I don't really think there's a lot of pressure from the depth guys other than that. Safety, we've obviously brought in Kevon Wallace a few weeks ago to take that fourth spot, but I'm still not convinced that we don't look at that waiver wire. I think Holland, Nubin, and Belton are locks, and they've all had a pick already this season of Russell Wilson. So it's not like we're worried about the starting bit. It's the depth side there. I think Kevon Wallace is a better option than Anthony Johnson was, who got cut. But it would be interesting to see. I would assume we're going to look at Belton and Wallace, and maybe even sort of further down that depth chart over the next few weeks. But it would be interesting just to see what happens there. And also, I'd like to see if we decide to do any three on the field at the same time with our safeties, and how that looks. It wouldn't surprise me if they try and install something with Belton, Nubin, and Holland while we're there. So I would like to see that. Any other kind of key battles you boys think is still there that we're looking at? I know Shane, you kind of mentioned it with yours, the run defense. I think that's a big thing. By all accounts, the run defense has been something that Biz was saying that he's still concerned about just from what he's seen at training camp. But Aaron, anything else? Any sort of other like maybe problematic positions that we need to keep an eye on?
Yeah, so I really do think who lines up next to Dex in the middle, if it's a forefront, that will play. I mean, I'm sure will be multiple, but is it Nacho? Is it Roy Robinson Harris? Is it Elijah Chapman? DJ Davis? Who's going to take that kind of starting position on the D line when we're going in the forefront, and there's the depth behind Dex as well. I think that's a really important thing. Obviously, the right guard, Greg Van Roten and Evan Neal as well, and how that plays out against a live opponent, as it were, in the preseason game. So hopefully we'll see a bit of, I know starters don't play regularly, but hopefully Neal he's listed as currently as the second guy at right guard. So hopefully that means we'll see more of him at guard than we will the rest of the starting O-line. But yeah, I think that those are kind of the position battles that concern me, because do we just have two backups and not a starter in those positions?
If I said to you guys right now, like preseason starts this weekend, pick one player each that has got the most to gain, who would you pick?
What a question.
So I would have said one of the receivers. So maybe a Bo Collins or a Juice Wells, or maybe not Bo Collins, because he seems to be the best of the UDFA bunch out of the practices. But someone that hasn't had that moment in practice can have it in a game. That Victor Cruz game against the Jets, where he just went, well, we're not going to be able to sneak this guy through on the practice squad, because if we don't keep him on the 53, someone's stealing him. So I think one of those wide receivers.
It's really tough. I almost said Dante Miller off the bat, just because of the fact that there is always the chance that Joe Shane keeps 4 running backs on the roster. And I just feel like he's the most likely to be there. I can't see Eric Gray sticking around. He's still clinging on. Obviously, Ward, who we signed the other day, is not really anything more than a camp body. So I think Miller is probably one there. Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles, and this is kind of tipping my hat as to what my 53-man prediction is, but there is always the chance that he ends up sneaking on. I think when you look at who's going to be there at linebacker, and obviously we're going to go through ours in a minute, I still think if you're going to carry a fifth linebacker potentially, which is going to be more geared towards special teams, I think it's open. I don't think Deontay Johnson has that position locked down, so I think he's probably got a lot to go for there as well. He's come in as maybe a sort of more under the radar signing, and maybe Stone Forsyth as well, who we've heard very little of, considering we didn't pick him up for a lot of money, but we also didn't sign him to a minimum contract. There was definitely a little bit there. So, I mean, there's a few players there, but yeah, what do you think?
Not so much as the most to gain, but I think for me, Nacho. I think for a player that is kind of potentially facing being cut off the roster, unless he takes a pay cut, which I don't believe he will. You know, you can save a bit of money with him. I think he's got a bit to gain, because at the end of that, like I say, you know, he could find himself after these 3 pre-season games back on the street, back on the couch, as one of our favourite guests would say that we've had on here previously. You know, he's not really lived up to what we wanted him to. I definitely would have gone with one of the receivers, like Mayo says as well, because like I says, you know, Hyatt has been having these kind of niggling injuries, and you just kind of want someone like a bit of a wrestling reference here, but I remember a few years ago Vince McMahon was talking about he wants one wrestler to grab the goal, just reach up and grab, and that's what we need a wide receiver to do, to kind of, like, you know, turn around and say, yeah, keep me on the roster, and then when Slayton's deals up in a couple of years' time, I can step into that wide receiver 2 position. I'd like to see one of the wide receivers to that. But yeah, for me, I'll get Nacho just because of the cost implications, and a defensive tackle that outside of Dex has got a lot of question marks for me.
I think that's a perfect segue into actually talking about the 53-man roster now, seeing as we've kind of hyped up a few players. We're kind of taking a punt here at the way it's going to go. So we're going to look at offense first. We'll look at defense obviously afterwards, and then special teams, I think, is pretty easy to predict for the 5 of us. So we probably won't go into that too much. But historically, Joe Shane has always had an average of 24 offensive players on the 53. He's always gone with 9 offensive linemen in a 5-4 split. And what I mean by a 5-4 split is he's always had 5 tackles and 4 guards/centers, or 5 guards/centers and 4 tackles. It's always been that kind of split. He's also never had less than 4 running backs, which is kind of what I was leaning towards when I said about Dante Miller there. And he's always had at least 6 wide receivers on his 53-man roster. Quarterbacks, I think, is quite easy. I'm saying this looking at the 5 of our depth, 5 of our 53-man rosters here, knowing that it is easy. Wilson, Winston, Dart, we've all gone for it. There's no way.
I don't think that was easy, though.
Do you not?
No, I can see a world where they do trade Winston and keep Tommy. Tommy's not making it through waivers, in my opinion. I think the team will pick him up. If you see enough progression from Jaxson Dart in preseason camp, and you know, if he gets on the field, which we imagine he will do at some point in preseason, if he can show enough to turn around and say, I'm QB2 on this roster, what's the point in keeping Jameis for the sake of it? I can understand what some people will say in terms of like next year and that, but you're hoping you're not going to have to use him. And if you do, you just need a backup, which Tommy can just be a backup. So for me, I struggled more with quarterbacks than running backs, for instance. Running backs was piece. Quarterbacks, I was really torn on whether to include Jameis or whether to pencil in that Jameis gets traded.
Yeah. So for me, Jameis was a no-brainer to keep him and not trade. It would have to be an incredible trade offer, only because the he's on such a cheap deal. He's on less than what we paid Drew Lock. He's on less than what we paid I can't remember. I can't remember the previous backup.
Tyrod.
Was it Tyrod? Yeah, he was on less than what we were paying Tyrod. He's on less than what most veteran backups are in the league, and he's on a 2-year deal. So for me, it's. I think having that veteran in the room next year with hopefully Dart as the starter, just helping Dart. I mean, one of the things that I think is underestimated in what Winston has brought is just the pressure relief for just throw him out at a press conference, and he's going to entertain the media. He entertains the fans. He deflects any difficult question away from Jaxson Dart having to answer the questions, and or So I just think his value on his contract is actually a steal, and not necessarily just for his on the field play.
Yeah, I from all intents and purposes, from what I've seen about the potential of the Giants trading Winston, a lot of people said that they won't do it just because the aim of the game was always to stabilise as much as possible. But you never know what's going to happen. Somebody could go down with an injury, and we could be given something that an offer that's we can't refuse, sort of thing. Running back is a bit more interesting. Shane, your running back room is
Tyron Tracy.
Yep.
Devin Singletary.
Mm-hmm.
Cam Scatterbo. Or Scatterbo? Male?
Scatterboo.
Scatterboo.
On the pronunciation guide on the unofficial depth chart, it says Scatterboo with 2 O's.
Scat anyway.
Yeah.
And then Miller.
So yeah, yours is the same.
Yeah, Tracy, Motor, Turbo, and Scatterboo.
Dan's is the same. However, Kev and I don't have Miller on there.
Yeah,
three running backs.
3 running backs.
With Scat having a hamstring injury. Interested.
Yeah, so I think the reason why I went with 4 is I'd love to see a Miller on kickoff as the thing. Now, what I sent you my 53, and then the unofficial depth chart came out, and in our third string kickoff returner is Tyrone Tracy. Our fourth string is Devin Singletary, and there's no mention of Miller on the kickoff return at all. So that was, but I don't want Tyrone Tracy anywhere near handling kickoff returns just because of the injury factor. I know he's got the again, Cam Scatterbo doesn't have the long speed for kickoff returns, so he's not going to be on there. But that's Turbo's game, right? Is that long speed? Like, why wouldn't you have him on kickoff? Like, it just feels like
it seems like a missed opportunity.
Exactly.
I don't have him there because I addressed the kickoff stuff on wide receivers, and Kev's done the exact same thing with a specific player. But I could, I'm almost contradicting myself because, as I said, he's never had less than 4 running backs. And I think if you do have 4 running backs, there's no other combination that I would be happy with. Eric Gray does not offer anything in that thing at all.
If you're keeping 3 running backs, it's the 3 you guys have named. If you're keeping 4, it's the 4 us guys have named.
Yes, exactly. Receiver, Neighbours, Slayton, Robinson, Hyatt, Smith, Marset is a clean sweep across the board, and then it gets a little fruity from there. Aaron, you've got 2 additional players after that, so 7 in total. Who did you look at?
Yeah, so I said Bo Collins, I think will be the 4th outside receiver, and I think Dylan Cambry will be the backup slot option, but I'm not confident that we'll get two of those guys onto the roster. So I think it'll be just really close when it's him and Montreal Washington. But whoever gets it will have to also be a backup punt kick returner as well of those two.
So Shane, you've gone for Canberra as well, but then you've gone with a veteran.
Yeah, I went for Zach Pascal. My reason thinking was kind of, like May have said about that kind of, extra wide receiver. So I named 7 wide receivers. 2 of them in my mind purely as special teams players. And then for me, it's a case of you got Neighbour, Slayton, Robinson, great. Hyatt's had his injury problems and hasn't lived up to what we kind of want. And then if you get another injury, you need a wide receiver who's on the team as a wide receiver. You don't really want to be putting square pegs in round holes by saying, I know you're wide receiver and we have you returning kicks, but we're going to get you to play wide receiver. Dylan Canberra had, I think it was 10 catches in his entire career at college as a wide receiver because it just wasn't his game. So the reason I went for Pascal over saying UDFA is because, like you say, it's that veteran player on the roster. I want someone who's kind of been there, done it. Mindful about these UDFAs. If there were a couple of bad games, a few bad drops, how are they going to react to it? Whereas someone like Zach Pascal's been there, done it, and kind of tried and tested hands, so to speak.
So Dan's gone for just Zach Pascal as his additional, and he's running with 6 wide receivers. So Hyatt, Smith, Marset, Pascal joining the starters. Kev and I have got the same duo in Bo Collins and Montreal Washington. I think that the team have actually been really impressed with Washington, not just because of the catches that he's been making when he's been playing on the second team with Jaxson Dart, but also with sort of how he's handled himself. I did actually not have Washington. I made a bit of a late substitution. I actually had little Jordan Humphrey in there just because I feel like we missed that big-bodied receiver. And like Shane said, having a veteran who is not going to really be that pure special teams wide receiver, just in case anything was to happen to Hyatt or one of the starters, is a problem. I think that little Jordan Humphrey, I don't think he's great, but I think he's almost like the best of a bad bunch as it is. So yeah, but it looks, we're pretty set on the starting side of things. It's just, after that, it is almost anyone's game, like we've said.
I think it really depends on who you can get away with on the practice squad as well. So there will be probably 2 of these guys in the room on the practice squad as game day pressure. Who was it last season that was forever being cut, put back on the practice squad, elevated?
Jakob Johnson, the German running back.
So if one of these wide receivers like a Pascal who doesn't have an opportunity anywhere else, or a little Jordan Humphrey or whether is happy to be the guy that gets elevated, is, if he's turned around and said, look, I know I'm on the bubble, I'm happy to join on the practice squad, and we don't think they're going to get picked on waivers. Bo Collins is, if whoever flashes in the preseason games, that's one of the negatives of Jameis Winston and putting it all on show. And if there's a highlight on the Sports Center of someone catching 2 touchdowns, they ain't clearing waivers, so they're going to make the 53. So it will be really interesting what happens in those games.
It's a shame the audio listeners won't be able to appreciate the shake of Shane's head there, as I mentioned Jakob Johnson from last year. Tight end is another clean sweep between us, with Theo, Bellinger, Manhertz, and Thomas Fedone. Pretty much almost wrote itself. I don't think anyone can upset the apple cart there, so I'm literally just going to move straight on to offensive line. I think that probably is the safest bet we could have on this entire roster. We've all gone for the same 9 offensive linemen. So Andrew Thomas, Jermaine Illuminor, John Runyon Jr., John Michael Schmitz, Evan Neal, Greg Van Roten, James Hudson, Marcus Bow, and Jake Kubas. I had Joshua Azudu on there as a 10th offensive lineman because he must have pictures of someone in the coaching staff or something like that because I just feel like he's going to stick around.
I feel sorry for Josh Azudu.
Because he's being forced to play tackle.
Yeah, I don't know what Aaron's thought at times. Obviously, Aaron's played the position that, but Josh Azudu was a guard that did play tackle at college, and then he's come into the NFL, and they just only seem to play him at tackle. And I think I'm not saying he could be a great guard, but I think he could be a depth piece guard in the NFL level. But the guy just does not get to the opportunity. It's just like the key. I think I've even heard Chris on the John Insider say that is it on the second team or the third team? He's still playing offensive tackle, and it's like, give the kid a chance at guard, man.
Yeah. I mean, there are some guys that are just guards, right? But you can be a really effective guard and a terrible tackle. Like it is possible. It's not. You don't just put a guy at guard and because they can't play tackle. There are guys that can excel at guard, but would be the worst tackle going. In the same way, there are centres that can play any of those interior positions, and I think Greg Van Roten is a guy that can play centre and guard, and you not see much difference. But JMS cannot play either of the two guard positions, right? So, but he can, and I still think he can become a good centre. But again, moving on to why I went with the people that I went, I do think, and I mentioned this when we did our O-line group kind of breakdown, I think that there is a possibility that we see GVR at centre and Neil at guard and JMS not in the starting five. I think that is possible with what we've seen in camp so far and everything else. So you don't need someone like Stinney as a backup guard. Maybe that Azudu is seen as well tackle that swing tackle position is the best opportunity to make the team, and we know that you could play guard in a pinch if need be, and maybe that's why he's getting the run at tackle. But yeah, for me, he's always been a guard. Like he should always been a guard. And I'd imagine one of the centres, Schlotman or Morrissey, makes the practice squad. But yeah, I think I'm not surprised that kind of 9 picked themselves with the Neil move to guard. I think that kind of settles the tackle conversation, and yeah.
Shane, after I reminded you that 54 doesn't go into 53 earlier, you did have Stone Forsyth in that position there. Is that just purely for as a backup option, just because of the fact that he's a veteran?
No, my maths are just shit.
My maths is perfect. Just see last week.
I think what it was, I think I've done that, and then I was like, oh, I'm going to have a 7th wide receiver. No. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. I think I added a 7th wide receiver and then forgot to take out an offensive tackle. I think the original thinking was just I was mindful of Andrew Thomas's injury, so I thought I wanted extra depth at the tackle position. Not that I rate Stone Forsyth, because I don't. I think he's shit.
And it's also indicative that none of us have gone for Aaron Stinney, despite the fact that he is obviously a returning player from last year. He signed another 1-year deal with us in the off-season, and all of us have put Jake Kubas ahead of him, which is kind of what happened last season. So defense now, historically, as you would expect, 25 defensive players on the 53 when there are 24 on offense, 25 on defense in 3 special teams. That normally, with one additional there, adds up to the 53. Last year, he did drop down to 24 players due to carrying the extra quarterback. So that rule came in last year, and it was a defensive player that took the hit. His numbers have definitely fluctuated more group to group on defense than offense, though. I think there was one year where we had something like 8 cornerbacks on the roster week 1, and that very quickly went down. Defensive tackle, then. There are 3 players that all 5 of us have gone for. Dexter Lawrence, obviously, without saying. Darius Alexander, because, as we all know, Joe Shane likes to put his draft picks on that 53. And Elijah Chapman, who we've all gone for there. Outside of that, it's a little bit more open. Kev has decided to go, and he has said he's definitely one defensive lineman short because he's got 4, where Dan has got 6, and the rest of us have got 3. So, Shane, you're the only one who hasn't got Roy Robertson Harris on there, but instead you've got DJ Davidson and Ledbetter, which the rest of us haven't. Dan does have Ledbetter, actually, to be honest. So what's the thought process there?
I just think that kind of, if you want a big nose tackle behind Dex, that DJ Davidson is the most suitable player for that role. I think the rest are kind of the big guys. Don't get me wrong, they're all big guys, but I just think, I think DJ Davidson's like 330, 340. Like, he's the best pure nose tackle. And you've kind of not really seen much from him. But for me, it was just a case of I want a proper run stopping defensive tackle, and I think Davidson's the most suited to it.
Ledbetter's an interesting one because, as Kev's just said, they don't really seem to like it. He's kind of buried down on the depth chart there, but obviously you've got him. Another player is Nunez Roches Nacho, who we've spoken about in depth on this podcast over the last few weeks, even the last few months, really, when we've been looking at cost-saving exercises. But Dan, myself, and Aaron have all got him in there. Aaron, I just feel like if he was going to get cut, he would be gone already, and they'd be planning without him, which is kind of indicative of why they still have him around.
Yeah, so I still think at the moment he's our best 3 tech, at least on early downs. Now, we've seen Abdul Carter line up as a 3 tech in some of the kind of preseason stuff, or in the practice stuff. If that's indicative of actually we're going to put Abdul Carter in there on, say, 3rd down, or have I think if you go with a 3 front, you're looking at like a Chauncey Golston and a Chapman or a Darius Alexander in this as kind of your other 2 guys with Dexter. I can see a world where he doesn't make the team, but in a 4 front at the moment on early downs, I sort of expect him to be I don't think he's been displaced yet, and we haven't seen live contact and everything else. But I think there's he's either going to be the starting 3 tech or he'll be cut. I don't think he'll be brought on as a backup for depth in the team.
Does this kind of go back to what Shane was saying earlier about the worry about the run defense across preseason, in the fact that we all saw what happened when Dexter Lawrence was injured last year, yet we're still saying that Nacho is probably going to stick around. So we've signed players, we've bought in Ledbetter, we've bought in Robertson Harris, we've drafted Alexander, yet we're still saying that potentially we haven't got better than the player that we all turned around and said was one of the biggest disappointments of last season.
Yeah, I think Darius Alexander is a bit more of a project than a day 1 starter. So he might need another year of seasoning before he takes that that over. But he wasn't. He's not a backup for Dex. He's definitely a 3-tech, stroke 5-tech if we're going to run that 3 front. So I just think maybe it's that there are guys coming. It's just a bit soon, and maybe it's something that we see by the end of the season. He is displaced, but going into the start of the season, a bit like Singletary was the starting running back at the start of last season, and he's obviously now the second guy on the roster, maybe even the third guy on the roster at running back. And I think that's probably where we are. We're a season behind that 3-tech position.
I don't think we need to talk about outside linebacker because we're all 4 for 4, and arguably you could say Burns, Carter, Thibodeau, and Golston is far and away our strongest positional group out of any on offense or defense across both of these. So we'll move on quickly from there. Linebacker is a bit more interesting. We've all got Bobby Okereke, Micah McFadden, Chris Board, and Darius Musau. Shane, you haven't got anybody after that. You've got just 4 linebackers, which is interesting because obviously linebacker is the main position where a lot of people look for special teams players. Obviously, there is one there with Chris Board. I don't think it's any secret that we're all viewing Chris Board as being that special teams captain almost. It wouldn't surprise me if he does get the special teams captain side of things there. But what made you kind of stick at 4 and not go for anywhere else, or was it just because you think that there are pressing needs elsewhere on the roster?
Yeah, I mean, I've got pressing needs elsewhere on the roster. Like I said, I've got seven wide receivers, which in a way kind of feels like too many. But let's say when you think that 2 of them are for special teams, and for me, I took into consideration that I anticipate seeing Abdul Carter at linebacker in some capacities at some different points in the season. So, I kind of see him as that kind of hybrid, little bit of a worst case scenario. You can drop Carter into linebacker if there's a big injury crisis at the position or a big need there.
So, Kev, myself, and Dan have all got Deontay Johnson as our 5th linebacker there. However, Kev is now saying, upon reflection, he would swap him for defensive line. Aaron, you haven't got Deontay Johnson, but you do have a 5th linebacker.
Yeah, so Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles, again another special teams guy that's on there, and he's got some pedigree from out there. And I think because I only went with 23 on defense overall, which again might be light by 1, I think. But I think the idea that you bring in these guys, again, Abdul Carter is multiple in his positions. Chauncey Golston is multiple in his positions. I think you can probably that flexibility might allow us to go 1 less than on defense as well.
You're on mute, Craig.
Thanks, Shane. That's me stifling yawns, that is. Looking at cornerback then. You've gone light, Aaron, on cornerback. So if you want to go through your picks there.
Yeah, so Adebo, Banks, Drew Phillips, Flott, and Corey Black. I do think this is light. I do think that there's potential that maybe we go with 3 safeties and 6 here. We might lose one of the offensive players for an extra one here. I don't know if Corey Black will make it, but just on the history of all the draft picks make it. I've got him in. I can easily see Trey Hawkins and potentially even Nick Jones as the extra one making this. I think I sort of see Flott as, if he doesn't win the CB2 drop, he's the backup outside and the backup slot guy. So if one of our cornerbacks goes down at any point, Flott is straight in at slot or he's outside. it's a tricky position to play. It's the most volatile position year on year in PFF statistics and all this kind of thing. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was, a surprise at this position in terms of someone sneaking on that has a good camp or whatever. So
Kev's the only other person who put Nick Jones, or the only person who did put Nick Jones. Obviously, you did mention him there as a potential, but he has put him in there, and he's right. He has been killing it in camp. The reason I didn't put Jones in there is because of the fact that if Flott is going to be a backup, he can cover the slot. So I don't see why we would take a sole slot backup in that sense. Shane, Trey Hawkins makes it for the rest of us. Obviously, Mayo hates him.
Mayo, why do you hate Trey Hawkins?
I just think he's the guy on the outside of the bubble of the roster, and he's the sort of guy that he'd be your first guy on the practice squad, but I'm not sure he'll make it on the practice. I think he might get claimed on waivers, and the big spanner in the whole thing is the second kick returner, which is a starting position on kick return, is D. Williams, who none of us have put down by the sounds of it, right? So that extra returner that we've had as a wide receiver might be an extra cornerback just to get onto the roster, right? So there's a chance that there's an extra cornerback that's actually doubles up as the kick returner too as well.
Yeah, it's interesting that none of us have gone for D. Williams, and then he sneaks in at the second bit there. But I
think actually the problem we do have with these projections is, I'm sure all of us will change something after we've seen 3 preseason games.
Yeah,
we'll revisit it.
We're doing this based purely on feel, rumours, what people are doing in training camp, and it's a different battle when you get on that field at the end of the day. And in training camp, you're just competing against other people on the same team as you. But on a football field, you're going up against their guy who also needs to make the roster for their team, and you're going to see a lot more on the field on game day on Saturday and for the next 2 weeks as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And then rounding it out with safety, we've all got Javon Holland, we've all got Tyler Nubin, we've all got Dane Belton. Dan is rolling with 3 safeties and just 3 safeties. The rest of us have Kevon Wallace there. Are we certain that Kevon Wallace is the 4th safety, or is it just he is the 4th safety on the roster right now?
So again, on the depth chart that came out today, Raheem Lane was listed as the second backup, which but I put asterisks next to that position because I do fully expect that to be a priority waiver claim. I think we're number 3 in the waivers, same as the draft order. So I would expect the top safety that's cut out of a 53 on another team will be the guy that will be looking to claim and take that spot. Again, if there is a DB corner that has that safety corner flexibility, do you then take that as an extra corner / safety as a position? But I think the top 3 guys, there's no argument between them.
I think for me, I've just gone for Wallace just because I want a 4th safety, and I'm just going to pick a vet every time over a rookie.
Yeah,
or over a UDFA.
Kev's just mentioned in the comments about obviously is it O'Donnell Fortune, who's obviously a rookie that we have undrafted rookie free agent at the safety position. Who, if he balls out, then away it goes. But yeah. And then obviously we've got Gano, Gillen, and Kreiter being those last 3. There's no change there. I don't think any of us anticipate Jude taking the spot there. I'm sure Jude will get some opportunities during preseason. It wouldn't surprise me.
I don't think it's a done deal just on how much money Gano's on, and if we do need some money, there's an option there. But given that the roster exemption. Jude's not number 91 on the 90-man roster, and he'll be number 13 on the 12-man practice squad because of his international exemption. And you kind of, if you change it after the training camp and into the season, you can sign another international player, but you're someone completely unknown that's missed all of the opportunity to play them and all that kind of stuff. So for me, I think the plan for Jude would be that this is Gano's last year of his contract, and you bring him on you've got a whole year to improve him to a level that you're willing to start him as your kicker next year.
Yeah, I think that international pathway's the key there, because if you didn't have an international pathway, there'd be a decision to make, I think. But because it's kind of a loophole, effectively, that means you can keep him and still keep Gano.
Do you think it's a detriment to the player to have I know that we obviously like it because it allows us to have players from this country and obviously from Ireland as well and other international parts, but looking at the hit rate there, is it a detriment in a way to that player? Does it make it harder for that player because of the fact that they don't count against the practice squad, so it gives them the ability?
It depends what side of the fence you're looking at it from, because the side I see it from is if you didn't have that international pathway, they would never be given this opportunity to begin with. So, but I also do understand the counter argument of it is a detriment.
So I think it's really interesting when you look at a specialist position, right? So he's actually played a game because of this designation, and there's probably some sort of limit that you can play 2 games before you lose your pathway status or whatever. But that wouldn't happen if you were a running back. That wouldn't happen if you were a wide receiver. That wouldn't happen if you're a defensive player. You're not going to get a kind of 1 game run out. Whereas as a specialist, I think it's different. So I would say at this point now that he's proved he can kick in a game, without that designation, he'd probably more likely get a starting job, or at least a competition for a real, like I say, Shane. This would be a real decision on do you pay the vet $5 million or do you pay the younger guy $1 million? But like you say, you don't even get this opportunity. You don't even get in the door. You don't even get the development that he's obviously would have had over the last year, and will continue to have this year. So that actually, if he goes on to take that starting job for the next 4 or 5 years after this season, he probably never would have got that chance to have that development, the NFL weight room, the NFL nutrition, all of that kind of stuff that goes with it. And actually, it might be quite a clever move to put a specialist on there, knowing that, there's been some success for international kickers quite regularly in the league, whereas, running backs or whatever, there isn't that same international pathway.
I was just looking up to see where Jude kicked his field goal because I was just trying to figure out if it was away from MetLife Stadium, then Shane still technically has kicked more field goals at MetLife than Jude, but no, it was there. So Jude's got a 100% success rate, whereas Shane's only got a 50% success rate on the field goal.
No, but I was ice by 6-year-olds. That brings a different mentality to it, I'm telling you.
That's still one of my favourite videos from that trip of you lining up for the second and that toddler walking in front just got in your head, didn't he?
Yeah, got in my head, and I was unable to overcome it, unfortunately. Don't have the mental fortitude.
The elite mentality right there. Right. That is all the time we have for this week. However, we'll be back next Thursday to chat about the good and the bad from Saturday's preseason game, what we've learned, any players that have stood out, any players that stood out for the wrong reasons. And it's one of our favourite parts of the sort of pre-regular season where we look at bold predictions
When we do
There
bowl
was some-
predictions next week,
Yes.
I don't think I'm on next week, am I?
No, so you'll have to send them in.
I'm on nights next week. Am I on nights next week? Yeah, I am.
Shane preempting next week for all the viewers because they know that Shane comes for the bold predictions. We're gonna have to put a rule on it.
I might even put it. I might send them you as a video. You know, you just play the video,
Yeah, sounds good.
and then when they're like really shit in 12 months' time, I can sit there and go, "That's AI, that ain't me." So I've already got the excuses lined up.
This is the, as Steve said, I cannot wait for the freezing cold takes. I think what was it? We did three bold predictions each last year. So between 12.
Was it an offense or defense, and then a team one maybe?
Yeah, and I think we had one successful hit on Kev's not so bold prediction. But
Kev was so annoyed when he seen what our bold prediction was because Kev had played it really conservative, thinking he'd gone bold, and then we were like, "Yeah, this player to make 150 tackles," and Kev's like, "What?" I'd have gone for way more than that if I'd known you guys were doing this kind of shit.
We also get the first ever selection from Aaron as well, and if there's anything to go by with Scatterbo Tablegate, Steiner Maths, and everything else we've had, we could be aiming for stratosphere here.
Yeah. I'm just wondering what's classified as a bold place. I'll have to go back and look at last year's and as a bit of my research.
You say Scatterbo to be offensive rookie of the year. That's not bold. We want better than that.
Yeah, okay.
We like Scat to break the rookie rushing record. That's kind of bold we want to see.
All right. Well, it's like Scatterbo to have more scrimmage yards than Saquon Barkley.
Ooh.
That
would be bold. That would be bold.
Yeah, that'd be bold.
I think it's too bold, but
there's no such word. Because when they throw you under the bus in 12 months' time because you predicted so much shit and stupid.
I could just say it was AI.
Exactly. It's fake.
Just did it for the clicks.
The clicks and the 5-star reviews.
Yes, indeed. Other than that tangent that we've gone on, is there anything else you want to add before we go?
That makes it free for the episode. I think that might be a bit of a record, but no, it's been good being back on. Kind of like the last episode before Giants football really sitting now. Obviously, we've got the pre-season, and we can kind of, you can watch the pre-season games and be like, Dylan Canberra making the team. He's clueless. Look what he's doing in pre-season matches. So yeah, looking forward to pre-season beginning this weekend.
Yeah, I look forward to pre-season until maybe the first quarter of the second game, and then I'm just ready for the regular season. So the first pre-season game is all like that, real like night before Christmas, really exciting, and then get on with the season at that point. And then we should just go to one pre-season game and then have the regular thing.
Or until you see Malik Neighbours go down, you're like, shit, get all the starters off. I don't want to see no starters on this football field. Get them all off.
Yeah.
Well, bear in mind as well that the game against the Bills is on at 6 p.m. on Saturday, and I believe is going to be on DAZN, I would imagine. I don't think it's going to be one of the ones that's chosen for Sky. It's also our only opportunity to watch it in a normal hour because I believe the other two are at silly o'clock in the morning. So take full advantage. And there you go. Kev is saying it's free on DAZN. So that is always something that you can watch. As always, remember to like this video, subscribe to us on YouTube. You can hit the bell to be notified of when we go live. If the day happens to change, that is always a handy thing to have. If you aren't already, follow us on the socials in the description down below and on your audio platform of choice for your podcast. Make sure that you rate us 5 stars. My thanks, as ever, go to Aaron and to Shane for joining me tonight, plus all of you for watching or listening. We are signing off until next time. Let's go